Whittaker Weekly is a 3-episode anime discussion podcast where two brothers discuss a show of their choice. The show can be anything from a current season flop to a decades-old classic. What are they going to talk about next? Who knows? They sure don't. I'm Andrew.
I'm Lee.
And this is Whittaker Weekly. Let's get right to it. All right, first off, the news. You found a couple of articles here.
Yes, now at first I thought this was some sort of gag, but apparently it's legitimate. Attack on Titan Levi official laundry detergent goes on sale.
Mm-hmm.
And, oh boy, let me just open this link real quick. I'm pretty sure it's a brand name. I think it was Tide or something. Let me just double check. But it looks like just a bottle of bleach with Levi on it. It's definitely it looks like it's Tide based on the logo. It looks like it might be the Japanese version of Tide.
Let me take a look at it. Yeah, except right now it says Attack.
Attack.
Uh-huh.
But it's a thick blue font with a orange and yellow logo behind it, so it feels like a Tide logo to me.
I'm not sure what Tide is called in Japan. It may be Attack. I don't know. Anyway.
But Attack Antibacterial X Super Clear Gel. But yeah, we got a picture here of Levi pouring this bottle into a cup with his trademark "I am going to get the entire world clean" scowl.
Mm-hmm. And his little bandana over his head.
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well, I'm not surprised by that in the slightest. I mean, the more popular a show is, the more branding you're going to see for it. So
it's true.
All right, next up, you found something for Fathom Events.
Fathom Events has announced that they are partnering with Crunchyroll to release Mob Psycho 100 Season 2 premiere. Coming up first week of January, I want to say. Let me just open up the link real quick and confirm. So I want to say it was January 6th. Yeah, so it's a runtime of 2 hours.
Mm-hmm. So it's going to have multiple episodes.
Most likely. In theaters, January 5th.
January 5th. Okay, good deal.
Okay.
Next up is some news that I found, and by found I mean I watched the Video Game Awards this last week. And they had a whole bunch of news, but two things that really struck out to me is that they've already announced the second DLC character for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and it's Joker, who's the main protagonist from Persona 5.
Okay.
And it was a very, very exciting, fun review. I'll go ahead and link the YouTube clip to it on our site. I'll just go ahead and let you guys watch it. And then Ed Boon, those of you who have been gaming for a long time may recognize that game. He accidentally revealed his next project at the Video Game Awards. He comes out and he's supposed to he's supposed to like give the award of like best sound editing, something like that. I'm getting that wrong, but he comes out and he's like, okay, and here are the nominees for best, whatever, and then everything fades to black like it's supposed to, and then there's supposed to be a video of the nominees. Well, instead of that, it's a video, a CG video of a fairly violent video of Scorpion fighting Raiden. And for those of you who don't know who Ed Boon is, he is one of the creative minds behind the Mortal Kombat series.
Yes.
So it was...
he actually had his name backwards with another co-creator, Noob Saibot.
Noob Saibot. Who was another Scorpion clone.
Yes.
But anyway, it was just...
Isn't he also the one who went like, Frosty? Is that his face that pops up every once in a while?
I have no idea. I have no idea. Okay. But anyway, so he revealed Mortal Kombat 11 in a fairly humorous way that has stuck out to me above a lot of the other world premiere trailers and stuff.
Right.
Anyway, so that's it for the news.
Backing up a little bit, there was something I remember seeing about the announcement of Joker about Persona being introduced into Smash Bros. Ultimate, and that was a video that was it was the shot from the opening scene from Zombieland Saga, where Sakura getting hit by the van.
Yeah.
But Sakura's face is Waluigi, and the person driving the van is Joker.
I personally hope Waluigi never gets into Smash Brothers, just because I think that'd be hysterical if they just
ignore.
They have literally every other Mario character right now, and they just completely ignoring Waluigi just because Sakurai is a massive troll.
But yeah, just that shot of her being hit by the van and slow motion falling away.
That is a that has become a meme.
Yes, it has.
That shot where it's expecting one thing and then a sudden twist to reveal something else.
Yes.
You know. Okay. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on to 3 episodes in. So
and this week was my choice.
Yep, you picked.
And I picked SSSS.Gridman. The synopsis reads, Yuta Hibiki can't remember who he is, and now he's seeing and hearing things that others don't. A voice from an old computer tells him to remember his calling, and he sees a massive, unmoving creature in the distance. Nothing's making sense until the behemoth springs to life. Suddenly, Yuta is pulled into the digital world, reappearing in the real one as the colossal hero Gridman.
All right, well, let's go ahead and start off. The opening starts with a girl with short purple hair standing on top of a school, and she's just kind of looking off into the distance, and suddenly there's an explosion, and then it cuts to Yuta waking up,
asleep on a couch.
And he's asleep on his couch, and he wakes up, and this girl who's sitting there in this, like in her living room, she says, "Oh, you're finally up." And he's very, very groggy. He just says, "Good morning." And she's like, "I tried waking up for half an hour and you wouldn't move. Are you okay? Do we need to go to the doctors?" And he's like, "I think I'm fine." And he gets up and he asks where the bathroom is, and she says it's over there. And he's just like, "Who is she? Wait, who am I? What am I doing here? What's going on?"
Yeah, so he has no memory whatsoever.
Which is something we're seeing quite a bit in some of the recent shows we've watched.
Yeah, amnesia is becoming a way too common trope. Way more common than it already is, which is already way too common.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, he goes to the... he kind of cleans himself up, and she asks him if he's doing all right. And he kind of just says... Well, he reveals that he doesn't know who she is, and she's like, "Wait, so you don't remember what happened today?" Well, she doesn't believe him at first. She thinks he's just being a jerk. And he's like, "Wait, so you don't remember what happened today?" He's like, "No, what happened?" And she's like, "Nothing. Don't worry about it."
If you're pretending, you're a real jerk.
But yeah, she says that on their way to school or wherever. But they get into an argument, and is it? I'm trying to remember. No, it's okay. So he goes to school.
Doesn't
with her.
Well, no. It's the next day that they go to school. First, she takes him to the hospital, and he's seeing things that she's not seeing.
They go through her mom's store. Her mom runs what's called a recycle shop.
Yeah,
it's just like it's like a Savers or something like that, where people usually what they'll do is they'll sell something, and then the recycle shop will try to sell it back. It's like a It's like a low grade. Well, I don't want to say low grade. I know. There's lots of smaller ones.
It's kind of like a pawn shop.
Yeah, it's like a pawn shop. There's some smaller ones, but there's also some really big ones. Like a lot of the magazines and stuff that I got from Japan, and even my Super Famicom, I got from a recycle shop.
Okay.
And a lot of them will have older, like just old cool collectors stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they take him to the doctors, and he comes out and he says, "Well, they said I'm fine, probably just be back to normal in a couple of days." She's like, "Oh, okay. Well, I guess that's that." And he's like, "Yeah, okay, bye." And then
he's about to walk off. He takes one step, and then the shoot. And something that seems to be trademark about this show, and I couldn't tell at first. I couldn't tell whether it was just me having a bad connection streaming. But no, what's actually happening in this show is that they have long, awkward pauses between to extend the animation or something, and it's
which was kind of odd because they I don't know if this is the way it was for you, but when they were arguing, it was like they were jump cut arguing
Yes,
earlier.
they were jump cut arguing for me.
So they were jump cut arguing at first. I'm like, what on earth is going on?
Yeah.
I had to make sure that Toby wasn't sitting on the controller or something like that. But no, he wasn't, and it was just they would argue, but they would jump cut the argument, like it's like they spliced it together. I don't know why they went with that. It was interesting, but maybe they did that just so they could go ahead and have these longer cuts later on. But anyway, yeah,
maybe
he's standing there.
Like, I don't remember where I live,
and she's like, "Oh crap."
And she's
like, I
just
don't know where you live.
Getting more and more exasperated with every passing second with this guy.
And she's like, well, I don't know where you live. And so he's like, oh, wait, there's someone who might know. And she goes through his phone and contacts his friend from school, Utsumi. He, well, anyways, Utsumi sends him his address. And, there's kind of a conversation saying, are you really Yuki? Like, what's going on, you know? And Yuki then goes home. She helps him get to his place. Well, not the entire way. They go part of the way, and he goes the rest of the way himself.
No, I thought they at least made it to his front door.
Did they make it to his front door?
They made it to his front door, and then she leaves before he opens it.
Okay.
And that's when he realizes his parents are gone for the next 3 months on business trips or something. And he makes for himself... she gets annoyed that she has to take him and has to go so far, so she makes him buy him a donut. And she makes him buy her a donut at a convenience store.
Oh, it's so far away. It's already 7, and I'm hungry. And then the next shot is them in front of a convenience store eating donuts.
Yes. But then she eventually takes him there, and then he fixes himself dinner, which is a bowl of Rice Krispies.
Oh yeah, a bowl of cereal. And it's revealed that his parents are through narration he tells us that he went to the apartment,
which is quite possibly the most realistic I've ever seen a teenager living on their own prepping themselves dinner in anime.
Depends. But yeah, for an American, it would be cereal for dinner.
Yeah.
But that's not always the case in Japan.
Done it.
I've done it. I mean, cereal is a great round. It's a well-rounded meal any time of the day. It's even a square meal if you put it in a square bowl. But anyway,
This is my sigh of disappointment.
That's a pretty pathetic sigh of disappointment. You can do better. It's revealed that his parents are on a business trip and they're going to be gone for 3 months. So it's really just him, and he's weirded out, kind of living somebody else's life.
Yeah.
And the next morning, his friend meets him outside. Utsumi meets him outside.
Yeah.
He's like, "You really don't remember me?" "No, I don't. I'm sorry." He's like, "Well, it's okay.
We only became friends in April, so we'll just pretend we're already friends."
We just barely became friends in April, so let's just go ahead and pretend we just barely became friends again. Type things like, oh, okay. And so they go to school and stuff. And we see inside their classroom, and he asks. Previously, he asks. He, meaning Yuta, asks Rika, the girl, what their relationship is, and she's like, "What are you talking about? I think this is when they're eating donuts." She says, "This is the most I've ever talked to you outside of class."
Yeah, ever.
Ever. So don't get any weird ideas about us.
Yeah.
And then she is slouching in her friend's lap in a very, very weird position.
Yeah.
Her friend is sitting at her desk and she's got her back and head in her friend's legs. Yeah. And she's just kind of extending her body outward.
Yeah, she's using her friend as a lounge chair.
Yeah, pretty much she's using her friend as a lounge chair. And her friends are teasing her, being like, "So, we saw you around the other day with Hibiki-kun," Yuta.
Yeah.
And he's like, "So tell us about that." He's like, "What are you talking about? There's nothing going on there. I was just helping him out with something." And then he comes in and he says, she doesn't even say that, but he comes in, he's just like, "Oh, thank you so much again for yesterday." And the two girls renew their teasing of Rika.
Yeah.
And he's told to go. He's told by Utsumi to go sit at his desk, where his desk is, and his desk turns out to be next to the most popular girl in class.
An adorable, short, pink-haired girl with
purplish hair. Yeah, more white. It's like white and it's got purple highlights at the tips, her purple ends. But anyway, but she's adorable. She's nice. She's well liked by everybody in class. and they well, anyway, class starts, and then we cut to lunchtime, and Utsumi's like, hey, let's go get lunch and go ahead and eat on the roof or eat outside. And Utah's just like, well, I'm sorry, I don't have any lunch. It's like, wait, you forgot to pack a lunch? He's like, well, my head's been really full with going to school, or like with just school stuff. He's like, oh, okay. And then this girl who's sitting next to him,
this super popular girl,
Shinjo Akane, she says, oh, here, I brought extra. You can go ahead and have some of my lunch today. And she hands him a, what's called, shoot, you have it written down, the special dog.
Yeah, the special dog. And it seems to be a hot dog on a hamburger bun, sliced long ways with a half of a hard-boiled egg on it and other toppings.
We should probably reverse a little bit, though, because we forgot that as soon as he realizes he has amnesia, that's when he starts hearing a voice. He starts hearing a voice calling his name.
Yes.
Like immediately. So, right, this is back to the beginning of the episode, and he goes through, and that's when he goes through the girls, like after he leaves the bathroom, goes to the girl's mom's shop, and we see this old looking computer, like the kind that has parts that are still exposed to the open air.
Well, that does. Well, he goes back to her place and then really sees the computer later. That
is it. The computer that he sees later.
The computer he sees later.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Because he says, I'm pretty sure he sees the computer early on. But anyways. Well,
they may have caught a glimpse at it, but we don't get a really good look at it until later.
Well, I'm pretty sure it's at the beginning, maybe, but he says Utah, like he hears the name a couple of times.
Well, he hears the name calling out to him while he's in the bathroom, and he's walking down the hall. So,
well, he walks down the hall and he goes into the shop. So, because one of the reasons she takes him to the hospital is because he's seeing things in the computer screen.
That's true.
So he sees the computer screen, and then she's like, "Are you sure we should probably take you to the hospital?" Because she doesn't see anything. He sees the face of a cyborg or a robot in the screen, and she
and is talking to it,
and he's talking to it, and the robot's talking back.
Yeah.
And Reka, or let me get her name again. Rika, she's just like, we should probably take you to the hospital. And then while he's out there, he sees kaiju. He sees massive monsters. He's like, what are you talking about? Like, can you not see those things? They're all over the place. Yeah. And she's like, what are you talking about? There's nothing there. And so, so that's the very beginning of the episode.
It's true. Okay, so back in this room, as he's sitting down, we see next to in the corner by Rika is these girls playing around with a volleyball. And right after, the popular girl offers this super dog to or the special dog to Utah. The ball goes flying through the air and knocks it out of her hand. And there is, I swear, it's 30 to 45 seconds of awkward silence as the camera slowly pulls back from a bird's eye view of the room, and everybody's like, "What just happened?"
And people are freaking out. And then the volleyball girl comes over and apologizes, and she feels bad, and people kind of chew her out for playing with the volleyball inside, which apparently she's done multiple times.
And she knows she's not supposed to.
She knows she's not supposed to, but she does anyway. Utah says, no, don't worry about it. It's totally fine. Don't worry about it. And he is like, it's still in the wrapper. It's fine. It's just smushed a little. And he opens it up and he starts eating it, and we see Shinjo looking at him. And then later on, he's walking home with after school. Utah is walking home with Utsumi.
Yes.
And as they're like, Utsumi tells him just how incredible it was that Shinjo gave him her lunch, because she's well liked by everybody. She's nice. She's got great grades. And one of the things that I wrote down that I really liked was Utah asks Utsumi, do you like her? As in, like, are you romantically attracted to her? And there's just this great little bit where Utsumi denies it. And it's probably about 20 seconds of him just kind of rambling until he changes the subject.
She's way out of our league, so don't even talk about it.
Yeah, something like that. But I really, really enjoyed that. But it's around that time that a kaiju actually shows up.
Yeah.
And starts... Oh, wait, no. Because they go to the shop first.
They go to the shop.
Mm-hmm.
They make it to the shop, and then we really get a good look at this computer.
I'm trying to remember why they went to Rika's... Oh, it's because he told him about this old computer.
Yeah.
He told him about this old computer. And they come across... Rika's on her way home. And she's like, what do you guys want? And then they all end up at the mom's store. And the mom's like, Rika, don't come through the front door unless you're a customer. I thought you were a customer. And she's like, well, actually, we do have customers. And it's the two boys.
Yes.
And then they show up. They show the computer. And the computer lights up again for Utah, but neither of the other two.
Uh-huh.
And he starts talking to Gridman, as he's revealed to be. And Gridman keeps saying, you need to remember who you are. You need to remember your calling. Because danger is very, very close. It's almost here. And then when he's talking to him, that's when the kaiju shows up. Because they all run out of they all run out of the store to see what it is. And Rika's like, wait, it actually is a kaiju. That's crazy. And he runs toward, and Utsumi runs towards the kaiju and starts taking photos with his phone.
Mm-hmm.
And then Utah remembers what he has to do. And he goes to the screen, and he's talking to Ultraman and says, please let me help you fight.
Gridman.
I said Ultraman, didn't I?
You did.
Well, it's pretty much Ultraman the anime.
It basically is. It basically is.
And they even mention that this is like Ultraman multiple times throughout the show.
Oh, yeah.
They just call it Ultra, but Rika has no idea what they're talking about, because she's just not that type of girl.
No.
But anyway, he asks Gridman to help him. Yeah. And he then turns into a beam of energy and gets zapped inside of the television.
Yeah.
And the two other friends come back to the store just in time to see him get zapped into the TV. And this is one of the things that I like about the show, because it's tense and it's dramatic, but at the same time it's also lighthearted.
It's a definite homage.
Mm-hmm.
And this comes up really quickly, actually, but it's definitely an homage to kind of the silliness of early 90s live action Japanese shows.
Well, and
this is something that I remembered. I didn't remember which anime it was, but I remembered watching Giga's review of this, actually, and how he brought this up, and he's absolutely dead on. When you watch the animation of the kaiju, it looks like a dude in a rubber suit. The exact way that you would expect the old...
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
In fact, the character design of the first kaiju, there's this giant dragon head coming out of the middle of a torso, so it looks like there's room for a person. There's no reason to design it except for this homage. Like, there's a room for a person inside this.
And the fingers are very, very obviously wires.
Yes.
But
and there's places for you to see out of the back of its back instead of its front. It's so great. Mm-hmm. It's just a great homage.
And we should probably go ahead and mention that Rika, the girl in this, Giga tweeted out saying that there are currently, this was a month or so ago, saying that there are two girls currently running for best girl of the season, and Rika was one of them, and the other one was the senpai from
Bunny Girl Senpai.
Bunny Girl Senpai.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And then he went off to go, Bunny Girl Senpai, why do you have so many level A waifus? Tier A waifus.
Tier A waifus.
My heart can only take so much.
There's a lot of wonderful girls in that show.
There is.
But anyway, the same could be said about My Hero Aka. Because everybody online's just like, look, it doesn't matter who your favorite waifu is. I mean, every girl in that show is like tier A waifu material.
It's true.
And it's just incredible how they have so many strong female leads in My Hero Aka. But anyway, so he then gets zapped into the TV, and we have that little bit of humor where Utsumi's just like, Yuta got swallowed by the junk. That's what they call the computer, the junk. And then,
which reminded me, when I saw it, and I saw like there's components of it out in the open, it's big and old, and it reminded me a bit of the computer that Lane builds to help her connect to the wire back in the old 90s anime.
But the humorous part that you keep cutting me off from, what I'm trying to say, is when she says, old computers are scary.
All computers are scary. Just why?
Well, they just saw it eat their friend, so old computers are scary. Anyway, so so he then appears, and he and Gridman they're like having some kind of a communication, or they're linking or something.
And the
like,
two of them see him on the screen.
And the two of them see him on the screen. They're like, wait, is that Gridman? And they see them linking, and then all of a sudden, Gridman appears in the real world.
Yes.
And Gridman starts fighting this kaiju, and he starts losing. And they're like, wait, he's losing. What's going on? And Utsumi's just like, if this was like Ultra, if this was like the Ultra series, then the monster would have some kind of weak point that he could exploit. We've got to find the weak point. And the girl's just like, what are you talking about?
she's not coping with the situation at all. But eventually, she's like, wait, maybe we can talk to him and tell him something.
They see the weakness. They see that like there's flakes of stuff coming off of the bottom of the neck. They're like, okay, that's where the weakness is. But we have to tell him how. And then that's when she comes up with the idea.
And so she starts tells him. So
tells
Rika
Utsumi.
tells Utsumi, dictate what you want me to say to him, and I'll type.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, she's one of her skills is high level typing speed.
It cuts to
she's so fast.
It cuts to Gridman, and Gridman's just like, oh, thanks for the information.
I can hear you.
And then it cuts back to the recycle shop, and Rika's just going, super fast typing, and Utsumi's just behind her like, she's so fast. And so apparently that's one of her skills. She's really good at typing.
Unfortunately,
and that's not easy to do on Japanese computers.
No, something I was disappointed. Okay, so I don't know much about Japanese computers, so this might be a moot point of contention. But if it were a alphanumeric English keyboard, she's pressing a lot of the number keys, and the spacebar not that much.
Well, in Japanese, you don't really have space. You don't use spaces.
Sure.
You have markers telling you what word goes where. Like you've got the subject marker, the direct object marker. You've got secondary subject. You've got location marker or direction marker, things like that. So if you take a look at a lot of manga, there's no spaces in between words. They use the markers to kind of separate things.
Right.
So that's why she's not using the spacebar very much.
Mm-hmm. But I don't know what the other keys are, and she's using the top ones a lot, which on an alphanumeric English keyboard are the numbers.
Well, at the same time, it's an old piece of junk. So
it is an old piece of junk, and there are no symbols on the keys at all. So
yeah,
in the animation,
I would have liked to see them draw the little symbols and spend that much time doing that for each.
Well, if they're going to do 3D animation on the
no, it's fine.
No,
it's fine. Anyway, so after they reveal to him what the weakness is, he then gets back up on his feet and defeats the monster. Not before the monster gets off a couple of shots, though.
Yeah.
And one of those shots hits the school, and we see like the girl who was the volleyball girl. She's skipping club because because a certain senpai isn't there. And if that senpai's not there, she usually doesn't attend. And so she. And it shows her sitting outside of the gym, and she looks up as the fireball is coming straight for the school, and it lands square zero on her.
Yeah.
Like the camera just zooms down, boom, giving you the impression that she just got killed by that explosion. And we do learn that is the case.
Yes.
She and several other students were killed. But that's where the episode ends, pretty much.
Right after the fight, and everything seems to be...
Utah pops out of the screen again. And they're excited that Utah won, and Utsumi's just like, we need to call ourselves something like the Ultra Forces. Since he's Gridman, how about we call ourselves the
Gridman Alliance? The
Gridman Alliance. And and Rika's just like, we are not going by that name. But anyway, the episode ends with kind of a montage of other people that we meet over the next couple of episodes.
Yeah.
Seeing these other people. And we see... this may have been the beginning of the episode, I don't remember where, but this is a great shot. A black and white shot of... It shows somebody's eye against a cracked pair of glasses.
Yeah.
And then it cuts down and it shows this person with a modeling scalpel modeling something in clay.
Right. I think that's the end of episode 1.
Yeah, it's probably the end of episode 1.
Because episode 2 starts with the kids walking to school and realizing, wait, the school's fine.
Yeah.
why. We watched it burn down.
Yeah, we saw the school burn down. Why is everything okay?
And then they go into the classroom. And the girls who died, no one has a memory of them.
No one knows who they are, and they noticed that they're like, wait, we have fewer desks than we had yesterday. Like, who's missing? Oh, so the volleyball girl, and then this other girl, they're both missing. And everyone's like, what are you guys talking about? We don't have anyone in the volleyball club in our class. And they're just like, wait, what? And they later on in that episode, well, they go back to their home base, which is the recycle shop, after they convince Rika to go with them to the recycle shop rather than her hanging out with her friends.
Mm-hmm.
And she makes plans with her friends right before they decide to go to the shop. And her friends are just, and then Rika's like, sorry guys, I've had something come up, I can't go. And the friends are just
the shop.
And the friends are just like, don't worry, don't have too much fun without us. And she's just like,
Like her reputation is being stained because she's hanging out with boys.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, so they go to the shop and they start discussing. What happened. That said, though, we get a little bit of the opening credits gives something away. I noticed.
It does, but we'll figure out what that is.
It gives it away, but also within the first couple of minutes of the episode, it already tells us what the opening credits did anyway.
Right.
And what happens in the opening credits is that the popular kid, what, you look like, okay.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, the popular kid, whatever her name is, Shin something like that. Shinjo. She's staring outside the classroom.
Uh-huh.
And then suddenly Gridman pops up in front of her. And the windows just shatter. And it's just the two of them staring at each other.
Right.
And then we cut back to the events of the kaiju attack from the previous day. And we see somebody controlling the kaiju and squealing in delight, saying, yes, I did it. I killed them. They're dead. They're dead. They're dead. And it's Shinjo. Or Shinjo. So Shinjo is somehow creating these kaiju, and she's... Well, we learn more later, but yeah, we learned at the very beginning of the episode that Shinjo is the one who controls them.
So the way that's revealed is she invites Yuta to have lunch with her. Mm-hmm. And they go have lunch what appears to be on a ceiling, a roof balcony that connects two sections of the school. And they have lunch together. And she's she starts prying into... You said something about a kaiju yesterday. What was that all about?
Yeah.
And then so he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm prying too much." He stammers away and doesn't explain anything. And lunch ends, and he leaves, and she leaves and runs into their teacher. Mm-hmm. And you see 3 red drops on the floor, and you're like, "Oh, what, blood?"
Yeah, it looked like blood to me. I was like, "What just happened?" And
the teacher, and then she apologizes to the teacher, and the teacher hums and then walks off. Mm-hmm. And then you see her in a completely different light. They have a hyper fisheye shot of her that just distorts her face completely, and you realize, okay, something's going on. And it cuts to her hand crushing the juice box she'd been drinking of and squeezing a few more drops out of the straw. Mm-hmm. Revealing it wasn't blood to begin with.
Yeah. It definitely looked like blood, though, and I guarantee that's what they were going for.
They were going for the blood look. A little bit later, she goes home. And her home is not what you'd expect a popular girl's home to look like. She has garbage bags full of something all over her room, and she's got these glass display cases, the 360 glass display cases, like columns in her room, and the space between the columns are just loaded with these full trash bags. And she walks across her room to the other side of it, where she's doesn't look like herself at all. It's a very yellow hue to the entire scene. And she puts on these what looks like safety goggles, now that I think about it. They're
She puts on a pair of
She
glasses.
puts on a pair of glasses
And they're tinted yellow, and it has the crack on it. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, they look like the kind of glasses you might wear to protect your eyes from the glare of a screen.
Yeah, or to protect yourself from when you're doing arts and crafts and things like that.
Yes, so they're not goggles per se, but they are safety glasses.
Mm-hmm.
They appear to be safety glasses with a crack.
There's no other more important safety rule than to wear these safety glasses.
I am holding Norm Abram above my head.
Freakazoid, ladies and gentlemen. Freakazoid. Do yourself a favor and watch that great show. Anyway.
Yes. Did you know that Matt hadn't seen it before? A few weeks ago.
He hadn't seen that episode yet?
No, he hadn't seen any of it before a few weeks ago.
I could have sworn I saw Freakazoid on his wall. I could have sworn I saw it in his collection of DVDs and stuff. Oh, man. I love Freakazoid. That show's so strange. Anyway. He can't... Okay, for those of you who are listening, because this is a podcast and not a visual medium, Lee just barely put his arms out and made a whoosh sound, because Freakazoid, while he's incredibly powerful and incredibly fast, he cannot fly. But because he is an uber geek, he pretends to fly. So he'll go around running with his arms out going whoosh, even though he can run much, much faster than he normally does.
It's the Monty Python method of flying. Mm-hmm. The same way they use coconuts for horse clopping.
Oh, and he's just... I just remember the episode where he tries to fly for the first time. He's like... He's trying to jump up. And Steph, his girlfriend, says, Freak, what are you doing? I'm trying to fly. Freak, you can't fly. Oh, that's right. Whoosh! As he puts his arms out and makes whooshes sound and just runs off.
Right.
Anyway, so let's get back to the show we're actually reviewing.
Yes.
Okay, so we get, so it's in the room, and in the display cases, it's all kaiju.
Yeah.
It's all just various kaiju.
Yeah.
And several of them looked very, very familiar. Oh, that's something I forgot to announce, and I'll go ahead and put it in the news. Trailer 2 for Godzilla King of the Monsters came out.
Nice.
And it ends with Godzilla and Gamora rushing each other. And I'm pretty sure it's Gamora, the three-headed... Yeah, Gamora's the three-headed...
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm probably getting the monster's name wrong, but it ends with Godzilla in that one. The plot is that this other one is also an alpha predator, and the two of them are battling for dominance. And someone in the military is like, so what? We just, let Godzilla become our pet? And Ken Watanabe, from the first movie, he's in this one, he says, no, we will become his. I'm very excited for that movie. Anyway, I'll go ahead and put that in the news and we can go ahead and link that trailer as well. But
Great. Okay, so she's talking to an intelligence or some figure on the other side of her screen as well. And apparently they have some sort of relationship, and she's happy as a clam that her plan worked, and the volleyball girls who smacked the roll out of her hand, the hot dog out of her hand, are now dead. Mm-hmm. And so we realize that she's an absolute psychopath.
She is a yandere, the worst possible kind. A yandere with supervillain powers.
Yes. But then she reveals that she needs to now kill her teacher because he bumped into her without saying sorry.
And you just don't do that. That's just so rude.
Which suddenly, now that I say it out loud, reminds me of Matt Damon's Loki from Dogma.
Oh, gosh.
It's like, but you didn't say God bless you when I sneezed.
Anyway. So it's revealed that she is the villain. Or she is in cahoots with the actual villain. Yeah. And this presence looks like someone who's like Gridman. Mm-hmm. Some sort of a cybernetic creature that lives in hyperspace or the internet or something.
That communicates to her through her computer monitor. Mm-hmm. And apparently what she does is she sculpts with an X-Acto knife in whatever medium that she's doing. She creates a figurine of a kaiju with her intent. And and this being on the other side is able to convert it into a full-blown kaiju. And so he sets this thing on the city to kill the teacher. Mm-hmm.
Well, and so before that happens, though, that does happen in this episode.
Yes.
But before that happens, we see the crew. They are in the recycle shop trying to figure out what to do. The crew the other two can now see Gridman in the screen, but they still cannot hear him.
Right.
And that's when a certain character shows up, and I'll
Now,
go ahead and let you introduce him.
The first time we see this character is actually in episode 1 when they're eating the donuts outside the shop. Because he looks across the street and he sees this creepy looking guy who's just sort of staring at him, and he's not getting what's going on. Well, we get to introduce this character again as they slowly walk into the shop, and he's got 4 katanas, it appears, and it's strapped to his back, long ways.
They're the Dai katana as well. They're the really long ones.
And he tries to walk through the door and hits the katanas against the door frame and falls down.
And everyone's just like, who are you? And he just gets up, turns sideways, and goes up, walks through the door again.
And this is apparently a running gag because it happens again when he tries to leave.
But he
comes in, and apparently he knows a thing or two about computers, and
a thing or two about Gridman.
And so he fixes junk. And so now the other two, Rika and Utsumi, can now hear Gridman from the other side.
And this guy introduces himself as Caliber.
Yes.
This is Caliber.
Samurai Caliber.
And they're just like, okay. And so they decide to go and see what actually happened to the 4 girls. And he's like, okay, this way. And he goes out the door, and again, his swords slam into the door. He gets up and goes out, and they're just like, what the crap is this? They follow him, and he turns out to be incredibly nimble. Like, he's jumping off of things and climbing up buildings. He
jumps up a couple flights onto roofs and falls along. Like, are we just following him? I wish he'd walk on the street.
I know. This is really hard following him this way, Like, I think I saw him go this way. And so so it's a little bit of a scene of them trying to find it. And they go to...
Then there's this point, which is just absolute comic gold. It's completely silent. They come to... in Japan and in some places in the U.S., they have these bridges over busy traffic where you go up you go up a ramp, cross the bridge, and then down the ramp again. Well, he reaches the end of the ramp. He reaches the top of the ramp on the other side, looks, and jumps down with a perfect squat landing, and then gets up and
he's got his hands in his pockets the entire time.
And the other guy, the 3 of them, get to there, look down at what he's done, and take the ramp.
And they just take the stairs down. And it's like...
Which, again, just all of a sudden reminded me of that scene from Shanghai Nights where Jackie Chan is encouraging Owen Wilson to do something. What in our history makes you think I'm capable of something like that?
I haven't seen Shanghai Nights in forever. Anyway, whoops. Okay, I do not want to put the wire in my pocket. I just want to put the phone back in my pocket. I was making sure it was on mute. Anyway, so they get to the first girl's house, and it's a restaurant. They have a restaurant on the first floor, and the family lives above it. And they go in asking about her. She wasn't at school today. They wanted to see her. They're friends of hers. And the dad's like, wait, you're from high school? That's not possible. My daughter died in an accident in middle school. And like, no, that's not.
And he's really not happy with this.
Yeah, and they keep pushing it, and then the next scene, he just says, "Listen here," and then the next scene, they're just like, "I think we pushed his buttons. I think we pushed the wrong buttons with that guy. Yeah, let's go to the next house." And so they go, and it's the same thing in every single house. All of these girls died in middle school, according to everybody. The only ones who remember them being in high school are the 3 of them.
Yeah. Which is also something that happens in the conversation that the popular girl has with the entity that she speaks with, is that she realizes, there's 3 people in my class who remember the girls I killed. Isn't that great? Mm-hmm. There's something going on here.
Yep, there's something going on here. We should figure it out. And so that's when the kaiju attacks.
Yes.
That's when this kaiju's much more of like a Godzilla type. Before the one before was just a long-headed dragon. This one looks a lot like Godzilla, actually, just the way he stands.
Yeah, he's standing tall. Looks like, maybe a big bird shape, or the head of the actor inside the suit is too high for him.
But he's got his 2 arms out, like either Godzilla or like the Dragon Zord from Power Rangers. Yeah. And the first thing it does is creates a beam cannon on its chest and fires the beam cannon, and it cuts to the girl, Shinjo, and she's just super excited, super giddy about this, and she's sent this thing out to kill her teacher.
Yeah.
And he, anyway, they rush back as quickly as they can to Junk, And they and so I was about to say Shinji. I'm like, no, his name isn't Shinji.
Yuta.
Utah. Thank you very much. The thing is, I've never actually seen Evangelion.
Well, apparently it's coming to Netflix.
I know. I don't have
But-
even less excuses to not see it. I just don't care.
Okay.
Well, I would like to see it. It's just, it got to the point where everyone was demanding that I see it that I decided to not. And just be like, screw you guys, I'm going to do my own thing. I would like to see it at some point, but I'll see it on my own and not because someone else forces me to. Anyway, Utah gets back to Junk and he sees Gridman and they go inside.
Yeah.
And Gridman is now powered up. And Gridman's powered up form is no longer purple and green and white. It's now
Like blue and red.
it's now blue, red, and white with some gold highlights.
So it looks even more like Ultraman.
So it looks even more like Ultraman.
Yes.
And that's definitely, once again, the show's paying homage to what inspired it, Ultraman. But anyway, but
So they end up having a fight, and this thing apparently is able to because Gridman defeated the last one. She using his
because of the way he defeated it.
using his beam power. Yeah. Putting his arm in that pose.
Japanizing beam!
Japanizing beam.
But no.
Yes, but so she built one that could reflect that power back at him, and so it does, and it hits him really hard with his own power, and she's super excited that it's working. And like and the computer that the junk starts sparking because every time Gridman takes damage, the computer reacts as well.
Yeah, junk reacts as well. And so the kids are really freaking out, wondering what's going to happen. They're worried about Utah. They're worried about Utah, and they're worried about Gridman. And so they turn to Caliber and say, "Can't you do something?
Can you fix this? No.
No.
Can you do something to help?
Yes. And then he says, "Gridman, Caliber, activate," or something along those lines.
Yeah. He says his code name and activate, and he gets zapped into the computer. In the computer.
And then, and just as the kaiju's about to kill Gridman with another beam from its chest, a giant sword appears out of the sky, lands between the two of them, and deflects the beam.
Yeah.
And he then has this really powerful sword that he uses to go ahead and kill the kaiju. The kaiju did a ton of damage to the city, though. She actually found the teacher and started going straight after the teacher. But we learned that anyways, Gridman in a single slice cuts the kaiju in half, and Shinjo is very upset about it, where she thinks he's cheating because he has this new ability.
Where did you get this weapon from? This isn't fair.
And then she kicks her screen because of how upset she is and cracks her screen.
She does. It knocks it off, knocks it against the wall. It's falling down, and then the guy in the screen's like, so violent.
Oh, so very violent. Yeah. But anyway, we learned that the teacher survived.
Yes.
And they are
now something that happened is that we see the teacher over and over again, completely indifferent to life. Like he doesn't care that people will tell him things like, I don't care, and he's not even paying attention to where he's going. He was not aware of things around him, and you could actually see physically that his eyes were disengaged and half closed.
The first time we see the teacher walks into the classroom right after Rika starts asking questions about the volleyball girl. And Rika's surviving friends say, "Teacher, Rika's making things up. She has imaginary friends. I'm worried about her." And the teacher's like, "Whatever. All right, let's take roll." Or not. And I'm just like, wow, okay. But yeah, he's extremely indifferent. But anyway,
and he does go through the transformation of his eyes changing when he sees the kaiju for the first time, and his eyes are wide open, and he's taking photos of it with his phone, and then he notices it's coming straight for him.
And suddenly you see his eyes clearly.
Yeah.
And he starts running for his life.
Yes, he does.
Anyway, shoot. But no, so the same thing happens the next day. The town resets to nothing, and and they're eating lunch. The two main the two boys, Utsumi and Yuta, are eating lunch on the roof.
Yes.
And it's super hot, and Yuta's just like, is it really worth it? I mean, we kill. Well, they have this conversation actually. It's not lunch yet. They have this conversation in the shop because remember it's Caliber who talks to him, and he's like, look at all the people who died though. I mean, we didn't make it in time. And Caliber says, well, if it wasn't for you, even more people would have died. Yeah. So good job.
Yeah. Be grateful for what you have done, and all you can do is the best you can.
Yep. And so they start having lunch the next day. Well, they have lunch the next day on the roof, and he's still worried. He's like, I don't think, did we really make a difference? I mean, really. And then it's his turn, and he runs into the teacher the exact same way. He walks off the roof, walks in, and the teacher bumps into him, and he looks up to the teacher, and the teacher looks down, and you see the teacher's eyes behind his glasses, and he says, oh, I'm sorry, I should have been looking where I was going.
Yeah.
And the teacher has completely changed, even though he can't remember the incident with the kaiju now.
And the psycho popular girl sees this.
Yep, the psycho popular girl sees this, that the teacher's changed. And that's the end of the second episode.
It is. And that's where we actually first see the ending credits as well. Mm-hmm. They didn't have it with the first episode. And the ending credit seems to be a lovely montage of beautiful moments between the popular girl and Rika.
Yeah. I haven't watched it just because I saw bits of it just because I was like, well, I need to watch the 3 episodes. So as soon as I got to the credits, what I did is I skipped like the last 10 seconds to see if there was a next time or if there was something that I had missed. And it was all credits the entire time. Yeah. So, and when I'm gonna watch this show on my own. I've really been enjoying it so far, and I'll watch the credits then. I mean, I'm not gonna go ahead.
It's nothing really special.
It's nothing really special, but at the same time, it's not like skip the credits, skip the credits, skip the credits. Excuse me, I'd like to report a hate crime.
More geekic references.
Yep.
Now there's a. No, it was a bit reminiscent of there's a My Hero Academia ending credit sequence that is just a montage of all the girls in class having fun with each other. Mm-hmm. So it's a bit reminiscent of that.
Okay.
But it's just the 2 of them.
Yeah, because there are only the 2 of them who are named characters so far. All the other named character females have been killed. So.
Except for, like, her mom.
Well, her mom is still just mom, so she's not technically named yet.
Right.
Anyway,
so 3rd episode starts, and I want to say that it's raining really heavily, and Rika looks out and says, "Can I just skip today?"
She's like, "I just want to skip today." Yeah, and then it cuts to the classroom, and they notice that Rika's not there. Yeah. But before, anyway, yeah, so they're concerned that Rika's not there. And the teacher comes in and says, "Good morning, class," and never says, "Good morning, teacher. Rika's not here, teacher." And the teacher says, "Oh, well, she hasn't contacted the school." And then it cuts to before school starts, actually, we have Shindle giving some food to a kid with white hair.
Yes.
A kid that she says Auntie. She calls Auntie. And she says, "Here, Auntie, go ahead and eat this up, and I'll call you when I need you." And he says, "Okay." And
and he's a very angry looking boy.
He's a very angry looking boy with white hair.
Yeah.
And very weird looking clothing as well. Like he's got one of those scarves that just seems to be in a permanent angry jagged position.
And honestly, his coat, the fringe of his coat have the flames that remind me of like the bad guys that Sasuke's older brother was in a gang
Akatsuki?
with in Naruto.
Yeah, Akatsuki.
Yeah. Yeah, their robes were black with those like little flames on the bottom, and that's what he was kind of wearing. It's something that looked a bit like that.
It didn't remind me of that at all, but each to their own. Okay. Anyway, he's definitely a bad guy.
Yeah.
And we see they get to and during parts of this we see when they're wondering where Rika is. Rika is skipping school. She's just kind of wandering around.
So they're looking outside, wondering where Rika is. Yuta and Utsumi are looking outside, and they see Caliber standing there in the center of the rolling gate that closes. Mm-hmm. Like, he's creepy. They're gonna kick him out. And then the gate closes, and he's still standing exactly where he was before. It's like, nobody seems to notice him.
Oh, wait, that's right. Yeah, no one does seem to notice him, huh? And they have all these memories of, him just standing there being creepy and people just walking past, not even realizing that he's there. And they're still worried about Rika. And he says, well, you can just, what happens is Utah's looking at his phone, looking at Rika's contact information on the phone. And that's when Utsumi teases him and says...
It's dial.
He's like, well, you could always just call her, and hits dial on his phone. It's like, ah! And, he goes to listen... To call her, and it cuts to Rika, and Rika has found Auntie, and Auntie's just scarfing down this bento. It looks like he's almost covered in blood from just the juices of the food and stuff that he's just devouring.
And he's using his bare hands. It's the very uncivilized, very animalistic way of eating.
How uncivilized. But yeah, he gets while Rika's watching him eat this meal. Her phone in her pocket starts vibrating, and she picks it up, and this is not a good time to be on the phone, because she's watching this happen, and so she hangs up.
Yeah.
And first of all, I just want to say, that's not a rude thing to do. To me, I was like, it makes perfect sense why you would not answer the phone in that situation.
Yeah, no, it's not the time to receive a call.
She...
But if you miss somebody's call, you call them back later, say, sorry, I missed your call, as a courtesy.
Yep. And she goes, and because of the phone call, though, Auntie recognizes her, and she walks over and says, do you need an umbrella? Because he's just out there in the rain.
Yeah.
And...
under a pavilion in a park.
And he doesn't say anything, and she's like, oh, well, do you want to eat this? And she starts handing him her lunch.
And he's thinking about it.
And he goes to get it when suddenly he gets a call. And we cut to in class, and in class we see Shinjo calling him.
Yeah, she's just holding her phone very subtly, and then she taps it, and then cuts to.
And then cuts to him, and he's getting the call, and then he drops his hand and just walks off.
Yeah. And
she's like, okay. And
he had a cell phone. Okay.
Oh, I guess, he had a cell phone. That's weird. And so she then, kind of walks off on her own direction as well. And then Auntie answers the phone, and Shinjo says, go ahead and cut loose. And he then transforms into a kaiju.
Yeah.
And the students see a kaiju. And the kaiju's coming straight to the school. And everyone starts freaking out.
And then the greatest moment in the entire episode happens.
And so far, the greatest moment. And again, I just love the mixture of humor and seriousness they have going in the show. Because we see... Go ahead. I know. We see Caliber just do this awesome, badass move of jumping up and leaping into the building.
They're boom. 3 stories up. He jumps into a third story window.
And he leaps in, and everyone's like, whoa! And he lands on the teacher's desk, and there's this cool kind of slow down pause movement where, you're thinking he's landing on the desk's going to tilt, and he's going to just land it back down. But nope, the desk just keeps going, and he rolls off the desk. He flips the desk, and he flips with it. And everyone's just like, what? And then he's just like, we gotta go. And he grabs...
He grabs Yuta and jumps out a different window.
And Utsumi's like, wait for me. And he goes down and he grabs Utsumi as well.
Utsumi jumps after him.
Oh, that's right.
And so Utsumi he catches...
Yeah, that's right. Utsumi's not thinking, so Utsumi jumps out of the window after him. Caliber catches Utsumi, and they just go off.
And so he's running, carrying both these boys.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, they end up in front of Rika.
And Rika's just like, what? Because the boys are just drenched in water, and it's obviously that they're there because of Caliber.
Yeah.
And she drops her umbrella out of the shock of it all, and he's like, you're coming too. And he grabs her.
And they jump onto the top of a roof and just keep going.
And you just hear all 3 of them screaming for their lives as Caliber's just jumping across the roof, these roofs with them. And they end up back at Junk.
The whole thing happens in front of the psycho girl.
The whole thing happens in front of the psycho girl. But they jump off, and they end up back in front of Junk and in the recycle shop. And Utah, in the last episode, we forgot to say this, but Utah is given a transformation wristband type thing. I forget what it's called, but it's very, very common in these shows. Power Rangers, they had their morphine belts, but in Japan there was something on the wrist.
Right.
Same with Masked Rider or Kamen Rider. He had a transformation thing on his wrist that he would activate.
Yeah.
And so he has this, and he activates it in front of the screen. When I first thought, I was like, how on earth is he going to hide that from everybody? It's so big and bulky. But apparently, it can change sizes. He hides it, or maybe it's disguised.
It turns itself into a 80s wristband.
It turns itself into a wristband
a wrist warmer
that runs the length of his forearm.
Yeah.
But anyway, it then appears regularly, and he uses it, and he teleports into whatever
it
world
went off. Okay, so the chain of events was, she calls, Anti turns into a kaiju, the wristband goes off, Caliber jumps through the window.
Yeah.
It's just boom, 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 boom.
Well,
it's
anyway,
she totally knows now.
They dumped them on the floor. Caliber just dumps them on the floor, though, and there's this awkward moment between Utah and Rika that we forgot to mention. And Rika says something. She starts saying something, and then Caliber is like, "What are you doing? Transform." And Utah's like, "Okay, yeah." And then he goes off before Rika can say anything. And then Rika's fairly peeved. Well, not really peeved, but more just
accepting of the situation.
Yeah, she's like, "Well, I'll tell him after. You know, I'll tell him after." And he. Also before this though, right at the very beginning of the episode, this is something we totally forgot to mention.
While talking, right after they were talking about how Caliber's standing there creepy, Utah's friend Utsumi whispers to him, "Well, if you turn into Gridman, what if other humans are turning into the kaiju? What if you're killing real people?"
And then Utah just freaks out. He's like, "Am I killing people? Really? No, that's not good. I can't kill people." And then Utsumi realizes what he just did and apologizes. "No, I'm just messing with you. I'm just messing with you. Yeah, don't worry about it. You're not killing people. They're kaiju. Don't worry about it."
Yeah.
But so he then goes. Into the computer and he transforms into Gridman again, and they fight. And this. Like they start getting their butts kicked by Auntie, and Auntie starts talking to them, and Utah freaks out, thinking that this is another human he's fighting.
Yeah.
And then they're like, "Well, can't." And then it cuts back to the kids,
and it's revealed that Auntie. I don't know exactly when it's revealed, but it is revealed that Auntie's power is he's designed to reverse or copy the powers of whoever he's fighting.
That's the next that happens in a little bit, because it cuts back and they tell Gridman's losing, and so they tell Caliber to go in and help him, and so Caliber turns into the sword again, and that's when Auntie develops the two massive pairs of claws.
Yeah.
And that's when it cuts to the girl, and she's watching the entire thing from the classroom, talking about how the classroom is completely abandoned except for her. Yeah. And she's talking about how Auntie was developed to counteract everything he does.
Yeah.
To copy everything that he does.
And how excited she is now to finally see it in person, because up till now she's watched it from a drone.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so.
But anyway, there's kind of a falling out between Utsumi and Rika, where
well, have we actually discussed before the falling out? Well, they start arguing amongst themselves.
That's what I mean.
Okay,
that's what I'm going on. Where she says, "What? Wait. Well, there's a panicked look on Utsumi's face, and she wants to know what's going on, and he says nothing, don't worry about it." And he's referring to how he thinks he's thrown off Utah because he talked about possibly killing humans, and Rika's worried that her not answering the phone is what's throwing him off.
Right.
So they're both blaming themselves, but being typical teenagers and throwing insults at other people to throw the shade off of themselves. But anyway, so they have an argument, they have a falling out, and then they see the death of Gridman. Like, Gridman gets defeated.
Yeah, Gridman gets defeated.
Mm-hmm.
Junk turns off, and they don't know what to do.
they're completely devastated. They have no idea what they're going to do. And Rika,
and it spends quite a lot of the next part of the rest of the episode, the next sequence in the episode. It spends a lot of time actually, with them being depressed and trying to figure out what to do next. They even
well, and it shows Shinjo is now on top of Auntie in one of the shots, and she's just laughing because she did it. She won. She killed him.
Yes.
She's so proud of herself for having done it.
And she even treats her kaiju to breakfast.
Yep.
At an all-you-can-eat buffet, and he's just gorging.
And that's the next.
Hands.
Yeah, that's the next. That happens obviously the next day.
Next morning.
Because
but before that scene, we find out that Rika spent the night curled up in the chair in front of.
She
Junk.
feels so bad about not being able to explain to him the reason that she didn't answer the phone or that she hung up on him, and she was planning on telling him when he came back, but now she can't. She's so upset about it that she's just kind of curled into the fetal position on a chair in front of the TV, in front of Junk. And Mom comes in and says, "Whoa, you're here." And she's like, "Yeah, did you go to sleep last night?" "No." "What about school?" "I'm going today." "Okay, well, here, come and get breakfast." And then the camera pans out and we see that Utsumi also spent a sleepless night in the recycle shop.
Yeah, on the other side of the shop.
On the other side of the shop.
Behind some junk, and the mom didn't see him.
So they're both devastated by the loss of their friend, the death of their friend. And then it cuts to Shinjo having breakfast with at the all-you-can-eat breakfast buffet.
Yeah.
With Auntie, and Auntie's just scarfing everything down. And she says, So are you a human?" He's like, "No, I'm a kaiju." She's like, "That's right. You're my beloved little kaiju. There's nothing human about you at all," type thing. "I made you like this." And she's just so happy and so proud of herself. Is it after? Oh, so the kids are on their way to school, and then Rika's just like, "No, I can't do it. I've got to see it for myself." And so she runs off, and Utsumi's like, "What the crap are you talking about?" And so he falls after her, and they wind up in front of Yuta's home, his apartment. And they learn, and then she's about to ring the doorbell, or she tries to have him ring the doorbell, but then she stops him and says, "No, I can't do this." And it's like, "Well, what do you mean?" "Well, why are we here in the first place?" And it's revealed that she does not want to go through what she's already gone through with two of her friends, where nobody remembers them but her.
Yeah.
She can't do that again with Yuta. She came here because she wanted to know for herself. But she now has lost the courage to go through with it, and goes off and runs off on her own. And Utsumi goes off after her again. They don't ring the doorbell, nothing. Right. And the camera just stays on the door for a little bit, making you think something's going to happen, but then nothing happens. Those jerks.
Yeah.
And then they were back at the recycle shop because they're skipping school. And that's when they show up.
So a crew of, what is it, 3 or 4 people?
3 people.
3 people come in.
There's a little woman with blonde pigtails.
There's
a big, bulky guy with like an iron mask in front of his face, and there's an average-looking guy with blue hair.
Yeah. And they come in, and apparently that they know Gridman, and
they know Caliber. And they're wearing the same type of suits that Caliber was wearing as well. It's just like a black suit with kind of a greenish dress shirt beneath it.
Yeah.
And they start ordering food from the cafe. They're like, "Whoa, there's a cafe at the back of this shop. What can I get?" "Oh, man, it's just a bunch of stuff that I hate. I'll go ahead and have a latte." "Oh, we'll make that 2 lattes. "Oh, I'll have a latte as well." "All right, make that 3 lattes. Make mine a set." "Wait, it comes in sets?"
You gotta have a toast set?
"It comes in sets? I'll have 2. I'll make that 2 sets."
"Oh, that's not available until 2.
"Oh, wait, this isn't available until 2. Oh, man." And Rika and Utsumi are just like, "What the crap? What are you guys doing here?" "Oh, we're here to help Ultraman." "Well, or we're here to help," I just said it again, Ultraman. Yeah. "We're here to help Gridman."
"Well, Gridman's dead."
"You can't. Gridman's dead." "No, he's not." "No, he's dead, and so is Caliber." "No, they're not." "Hold on just a moment." They walk over to the computer. "Caliber, what the crap are you doing?" And then Caliber starts talking back to them. He's like, well
before that, no, they don't talk to him through the computer. The computer's busted.
Oh,
at this point. So there's like, "Do you usually ask?" So they ask him, "What can you tell us about our friend? Do you usually ask strangers about your friend?" Why don't you ask him yourself? Well, how? How do you usually contact your friends?
Oh, that's
And,
right.
it didn't even dawn on them to try calling him from the phone.
Uh-huh.
And of course, it didn't dawn on him to try calling them from the phone either.
Well,
But Rika calls, and they talk for a second, and then the blonde steals the phone
and says, put caliber on.
Put caliber on. What are you doing?
What are you doing? And it's like, oh, well, Gridman has survived. Gridman has completely recovered, and we were lying in ambush waiting for the kaiju to show up again, but the kaiju's not returning. Get out of there and come back here. And so it shows Caliber comes through Junk's screen again.
Yeah.
And they're all together and just like, so here, look, how about we just go ahead and draw the kaiju out? And so they have Gridman. Gridman reappears in the middle of the city. And as Shinjo is celebrating the thing on her computer, says, "Oh, you may not want to celebrate right now. Well, why is that?" And then she sees that Gridman's alive. She's like, "He's lived!" And so she gets Auntie to go fight him. And this time, Gridman is more prepared for him and puts up a better fight. And then they say, "Well, can you go help him?" And Max says, "Oh yeah, I can go ahead and do that." And Max is the guy with the metal plate in front of his face.
Yeah.
And he says his code word, and he zooms into the
something about Ultra Tractor.
Something like that. And he
Ultimate Tractor.
And he transforms. He goes through the screen and transforms in the real world into this massive.
Is a tractor tank.
It's
with two cannons.
It's a tractor tank with two cannons, and it's huge. And he starts shooting at Auntie.
Yes.
And Max and then Gridman then merge, and Gridman can't be comfortable in that thing because he put his arms up like this.
Yeah, he did.
He put his arms up like this while Max turned into this massive pair of giant arms, and his arms, for those of you who are not watching the video recording of this, I just put my arms up as if I was doing like
you're doing a muscle you're doing a muscle man pose with your fists up, but the arms attached to him going down.
Yeah.
And so Ultraman's arms are now in the shoulders of.
Well, it's a good thing he's a giant robot, because that would hurt if he was an actual person.
Right.
And so he and Max have become this. He's got just a giant pair of arms now that have cannons on them.
And there's some attachment that enhances his head. It's like a partial helmet mask thing that goes on him with the arms. And then they fight, and
Auntie hits him with something. Ultraman counters, and they counter each other a couple of times. And then Auntie uses his ultimate attack with this massive beam of energy.
And Gridman responds with his ultimate attack, which is another beam of energy. And they're blasting each other, and it's a extreme far shot of all the energy that they're doing to each other. And it's massive and amazing. And then
excuse me,
both of them at the same time seem to run out of power. And it's like time, and they both time out, and then they have to stop fighting.
Yeah, I mean, every episode so far, when Ultraman is weak or is out of energy or something, the orb on his head starts flashing.
Yeah, it's like a warning. It's like some kind of engine check engine warning.
Something like that, and it's the same thing happening with Auntie this time. But Auntie crumbles and reverts to his small form,
and then passes out.
And then Gridman, after having defeated him, they then revert back to... they teleport back in through the screen for Junk's screen. And everyone's happy to see Utah just fine. And Rika goes up to him and apologizes for not answering the phone. And says I couldn't answer it at that time type thing. And then she runs off behind the curtain that separates her home from the recycle shop, and she's got this kind of little happy smile that Utah's fine. And we see the next day people are getting ready for school again, and we see Auntie standing outside of Shinjo's house, and Shinjo again has a bag of food. But instead of handing it to him this time, she slams it on his head and walks off. And that's where the episode ends. So, yeah. So Auntie's still alive, and he is no longer allied with Shinjo because of that treatment, I assume.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, that's where the 3 episodes end.
All right.
So what are your final thoughts?
It's a lot of fun, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to watch it this season.
Okay.
I just have a lot on my plate right now, and it's a lot of fun. But the first 3 episodes didn't grip me story-wise the way that other shows have.
Okay. I enjoyed it. I'm probably going to keep watching it, though I may hold off until, I don't have quite as many shows to watch, but that just, I have so much that I'm just trying to get done as well. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It's real good. Some people think it's one of the best shows of the season. I'm not convinced. I think it's really, really good, but I don't know if it's one of the best shows of the season.
It might get really good, and there might be some things that happen in past the first 3 episodes that really hit it home. So to those of you listening, go ahead and leave us a comment, either on Whittaker Weekly's
website.
Discuss. That's what I was thinking of. The Discuss chat for this episode, or in the comment section for this the YouTube video.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I would like to watch more of it. I just don't have a ton of time to watch a lot of things right now.
Right.
I'm trying to get the beta done for my book, and I've got so much other stuff to do. But anyway, next week it's my pick, and I'm very excited for this show because it's Studio Bones at their weirdest. And Studio Bones is just an incredible, incredible studio. Either they knock things out of the park or it's garbage. And I'm hoping that they knock it out of the park with this one. I've heard some really good things about this show. But this is Dragon Pilot.
Dragon Pilot.
And this synopsis is from Google. We will be watching it on Netflix, but Netflix's synopsises are usually pretty terrible, so I just found this on Google.
Okay.
Hitomi Amakasu is a rookie in the Japan Air Self-Defense Force, located at the Gifu Air Base. While there, a concealed dragon, Masotan, chooses her to be his pilot, which leads her to discover that being a dragon pilot is her destiny, and she undergoes fighter pilot training for an upcoming mission for Hisone and the other dragon pilots. The pilots eventually go on the mission under the watchful eye of the command center.
Okay, then. Now, you and I, we saw the trailer for this.
We watched the trailer for this.
And yeah, it animation-wise, it reminds me a little bit of, what is it, Little Witch Academia?
Yeah, it does. It does have that vibe to it, where everything's kind of cutesy.
Everything's cutesy and exaggerated motion animation.
But for those of you who haven't seen the trailer yet, there's this great part where the dragon, in order to get the pilot inside of itself, eats the pilot.
Yes.
And then the pilot has to climb through just this slimy dragon's throat to get to the cockpit.
Yeah. and so they're surrounded by pink, slimy walls of meat that suddenly become a heads-up display and viewport.
Yep. I'm very excited for this. I've heard great things about it. So we'll go ahead and watch that for next week's 3 episodes in.
All right. Which brings us to our next segment, the recommendation of the week. And I'm going to recommend The Ungame. Now, I was introduced to this game by my wife, who, while we were dating, she had a copy of it that we played together. And what it is it's a party game that was developed by a clinical psychiatrist who it comes in 2 stacks of cards, level 1 and level 2. And level 1 is kind of get to know you, fun, and level 2 is it has deeper questions in it. And now there are multiple editions. There's the Ungame for couples, the Ungame for family, the Ungame for kids. And I play this with my family, and it's kind of it's a game designed to get people to talking to each other about random topics.
Okay.
And it's a lot of fun.
Okay.
And it's something my wife and I played a lot while we were dating to help get to know each other and kind of to get to know each other.
Good deal.
And uncover things that we wouldn't think to ask.
Cool. I'll have to check that out. That sounds like a lot of fun. Okay, and I guess it's time for the creator shout-out, and that's my turn this week. And I'm going to go ahead and give a shout-out to Zach Gorman. Zach Gorman, I've known his stuff for years. I actually have some of his artwork. I've got some posters of his. He did a lot of just wonderful art for based off of or inspired by Super Nintendo games.
Okay.
Like I've got some great art of his for based on Earthbound. I've got a poster of his that I've got hanging up at my cubicle at work. That's a poster of the Returners from Final Fantasy VI. It's all the characters from Final Fantasy VI on the bridge of the airship during a sunset.
Nice.
He is an incredible artist. His website is Magical Game Time. He's got several websites. MagicalGameTime.com was the one that I primarily knew him from. You can also go to ZachGorman.com. He doesn't update very often anymore, just because his professional life has really taken off. Like, he has done a ton of stuff. So I would recommend that you guys check out his sites, and I think his store is still up and running. We'll go ahead and put a link to it if it's still there. But yeah, and if not, then you can still go ahead and take a look at his incredible art. I was reminded of his art because someone found a bunch of his Legend of Zelda comics and posted them on Imgur.
Okay.
And I came across that today during a break at work. But yeah, go ahead and give Zach Gorman a try. I'm going to go ahead and that's my shout out for this week.
Alrighty. Well.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening in this week. If you listened on YouTube, please feel free to like this episode and subscribe to our channel. If you like what we do and want to support us, please spread the word of our podcast or even support us on Patreon. Where can they find us on social media?
Our site, WhittakerWeekly.com, currently has links to our Facebook page, Twitter account, Patreon page, and YouTube channel. We encourage all our listeners to follow us on the social media platform of their preference. And if there's one we're not on yet, please reach out to us on one of the ones we've mentioned, and we'll broaden our scope to include you.
All right. Well, I want to go ahead and give a shout out to Ben Coombs for providing the art for our podcast and website.
And a shout out to Brazmataz for writing Dreikolk, which we use for our opening and closing song.
All right. Well, that's it for this week. I've been Andrew.
I've been Lee.
And this has been Whittaker Weekly. You guys have a great week.